So my name is Paul Higdon. My company name is ResultsCX. We are, as I just mentioned, a BPO. Lot of high volume transactions. We do millions of things, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into that. And we're going to talk about shifting left through automation, which is a little bit different than shifting left through service management. And we'll talk about what shifting left means. I'm going to give you the traditional definition of shifting left. Everybody probably knows it, but so that we're all on even playing field. And then I'm going to talk you through shifting left through automation. I'm going to touch on one element, which is how to take IT out of service management or out of ITSM. That was touched on this morning with the keynote. I just, again, level set, make sure we're all speaking the same language before I dig a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about why I care, who I is. My mantra, I have several. One of my mantras is think small, then impact big. So we're going to talk about what that means and then just share a few stories. If there are questions, I don't mind being interrupted. It won't break anything up. If we talk the rest of the time about something you care about and not about my slides, won't hurt my feelings. Marketing team put this together for me. So they are the ones that made it pretty. They're the ones that'll be upset if it doesn't get used. Won't hurt my feelings at all. So ResultsCX. We're in 9 countries. Talked about, we've got about 23,000 employees right now. We expect to grow to close to 40,000 over the next 18 months through acquisition. We are currently valued, I know it says 500 million on there. We just hit 720, 730 last month or so. And we expect to be $1 billion company by middle of next year. So a lot of growth. And what that means is the company is outpacing our capacity and capability. We can't hire enough people, train them, and make them experts fast enough to keep up with the company. So instead of doing that and having to go through just the overhead that's involved in there, we've decided to take and invest in the automation side. I think it's everything on there. This is not a brag sheet. This is so I can help you to understand the kinds of things that we care about. So healthcare is huge for us. Banking is huge for us on both sides of that spectrum and things in the middle. You'll see a logo that's on our slide that actually pairs up here. We share T-Mobile as a client as well. But we care about healthcare, we care about banking, we care about telecom. And if anybody reads anything, telecom, a lot of data, a lot of breaches, a lot of things like that. So the whole security element and what was talked about this morning and yesterday, both with the keynotes, tying IT and security and making sure that you're working together. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about in a little bit will help demonstrate how we keep that alignment intact. I was really, I've said this to a couple of people. I was hurt when I saw that this morning and yesterday both, the split between IT and security. I meet 3 times a week with our CISO. I don't know if anybody else does that, but it was discouraging to me to hear that that's not a common practice. So every Monday, we have a meeting where I'm on her team specifically, and we talk about things. Every Tuesday, we have a governance group, which is the entire IT leadership. It's our architecture review board. And we review everything that's going on in the company from a security and risk management perspective first. We don't let a single application come into our environment that doesn't go through that process. So it has to go through and be certified by our security and risk management team and we have to have an NDA before we even talk. So if that's not common practice, I'm going to recommend that. It's not really what I'm talking about, but it's just fresh in my mind because of what we were talking about earlier today. So what is a traditional shift left mindset? And everybody's seen the slide where customer's on one side and service desk is on the other. And the farther you move left, the cheaper, faster, better experience, all those things. And that's all true, right? It drives self-service. We definitely want to do that. We want to do that through our user experience. We want to do that through the Ivanti platform. We want to sell that messaging across the board because it's important. It's important that we empower our people to be able to do the things that they need to do. One of the elements that comes with that, though, is human change. Human change is very difficult. It's not what we're expert at. We're IT people, for the most part. We're expert at systems. We're expert at processes. We're expert at doing the right things for the right reasons for the business, or doing what we're told, which we believe is the wrong thing, but we were going to do it anyway, right? So what we're not is we're not psychologists. We're not HR experts. We're not change experts for people. So it's very, very difficult to get people to absorb the value of the shift left mentality, right? You can tell them, and they can hear it, but they don't become believers. And then, because they're not believers, they're not evangelists. And you need evangelists. The only way to really get that evangelist is through experiencing something that they can believe in. So I'm going to take you through what I believe shift left through automation does for you. If we do the same kind of mindset, but instead of driving it through the user interface of our ITSM platform and leverage our ITSM platform, for my case, it's Neurons. I don't know, everybody's got their own different experience, but for us, Neurons has worked great. So what we do is we target eliminating those redundant tasks. I'll show you those in a minute. The submission process. Why? We make someone submit a request for a thing. If we know what they need, eliminate that. Don't make them go in and submit a ticket for them. Make it so proactive that they don't even know it's happening. And one of the things that really comes with that is that near-time resolution. If I can automate that you did an action over here, trigger a thing here, deliver a thing here, and you have the result before you even left this screen, that's winning. And that's winning those evangelists over. And they will start to say, holy cow, did you know what they built for me, for my process, for my team, my department? They can do the same thing for you, for your department, whether that's finance or HR or whatever. And it takes advantage of core functionality. So you're not having to do a lot of special builds and things like that, using the APIs that are part of the core capability, using the functionality that's part of the core capability. Learn your platform, and you can do amazing things over and over again, and it becomes easier for you every time you do it. And delivering that best, and you'll notice, I'm going to go back one slide, very bottom, right? Delivering best experiences and outcomes. It's consistent. The only thing we did was we took the person out of it. We did it for them. So this is where we take IT out of IT service management. The phrase ITSM, and I understand where its origins are, and I'm an ITIL guy and all that other stuff, but it's a limiter. We human beings love artificial boundaries. We love walls. We love buildings. We love states. We love countries. We love family, our family. We love our community, right? We build these artificial barriers. Why build an artificial barrier within the very platform that can serve the entire company? So take the IT out, talk service management. And then there's the whole other phrase, enterprise service management. Enterprise is a scary word. It's big, it's giant, it's huge. It's this whole thing. I don't understand it. It's too much. So take that out of it too. Just talk service management. What service do you need us to help you manage? That's an embracing phrase that you can use or question that you can use with any department within your entire company. And it doesn't matter who or what they do. It maximizes your investment on the Ivanti side. There is spend, right? And you could call it that. You can call it spend, you can call it budgeted, you can call it whatever. It's not, it's an investment. And if you can generate more in operational impact or value than the dollar cost, it's not an expense. It's an investment. So then you've got the whole simplifying the user experience. Again, they don't need to understand how to submit a ticket. They don't need to understand the process. We do it for them. Single source of truth, this becomes great because if your service management system is serving the entire company, all of the executives speak the same language. How many tickets did your team work? My team worked X tickets. My team worked Y tickets, right? Now you've got the CFO, the CHRO, you've got the CIO. They're all speaking the same language instead of the poor CIO speaking over here and talking in Dutch while everybody else is talking in German and Portuguese, right? There's no clear communication. What is a case? Mark, I think it was you yesterday was talking about the difference between a case here and a service tech here and an incident here and a PO request here. They're all requests. So I universalize my language. In our organization, we have two kinds of people. We have requesters and we have resolvers. I don't care what department you're in. You're either a requester, you need something or ask for something, or you're a resolver. You're a doer that's actually fixing that or taking care of that or closing that. And it standardizes the language through the entire company. Everybody's one or the other. And at any given time, you could be both. And then the reduced cost to operate, it simplifies everything. If we can eliminate the user interface, if we can take it back to where it's actually something that is done through consistent delivery across the entire enterprise, I can move, again, Mark, I'm going to use you. you've moved to how many different things within your organization? 11, 12, 20? I mean, a bunch of different jobs. What if you had to learn a different interface every single time? That sucks. It sucks for me. My job satisfaction declines every time I move. Hey, I got a promotion. Hey, I got to, asked to do to this different department. Now I have to start from scratch. I'm an infant again. I was an adult here. I'm an infant all over again, right? It's 8th grade to high school. It's high school to college. It's college to career. That's a lousy path. It's just awful. It's so much better if you can go up here and just ride the curve. So why should I care? And who is I, right? I is everyone. It's requesters and resolvers. It's the decision makers. It's process owners. It's business department heads. Everybody has equal stake in what's going on. And that's where that whole understanding is of expanding the automation capabilities and the service capabilities to the entire enterprise. Everyone wins, everyone benefits. If you do that, that whole change management, that adoption part becomes so much easier because now you're talking expandability instead of adoption. It's a totally different argument. Then buzzword I said, or phrase I said earlier, think small, impact big. So I did this math a while ago and it really kind of caught me by surprise. A single minute, and I told you, all right, we do high volume actions. So think about small things that are done a lot. A single minute, 10,000 times is 1 week, 24 hours a day, approximately. So if you do 52 small things, that is 1 year, 365 days, 24 hours a day. You get an extra day on leap year. Think about what that impact is. What is the number one reason why people talk about using bots? It's available 24/7, 365, right? I can give you that same benefit through automation and process engagement and not have to worry about human adoption, which a bot takes, right? If users aren't using it, it doesn't matter that you didn't build it. You have to have a custodian over it. You have to have a development and implementation time period. These are all microtransactions. And every microtransaction you move off of somebody, their job satisfaction goes up. Poor Mary has to do this 10,000 times in a year. If I can go to Mary and say, how would you like to never, ever do that again? Do you think Mary's going to buy me a bottle of bourbon? Or throw up firecrackers at me, right? I'm walking out with a bottle of bourbon. I become a hero. And I've used that analogy a lot, right? Everybody wants to be Superman. Nobody wants to be Lex Luthor. Be Superman, Wonder Woman, whomever, pick a hero. So we're going to use some stories here. Oh, the last phrase at the bottom there, right? Shift left so far that they don't have to do anything. So the first story I'm going to tell is new employee equipment. I don't know who here is a part of IT asset management stuff, but if IT asset management is your thing, we outsource our IT asset management delivery. Not everybody gets the benefit of doing that or the curse, depending on where you are, but we outsource the actual shipping part. So I don't have to worry necessarily about the logistics piece of it, but the transactional piece was horrible. So we have a homegrown training system, and I'm going to give you 3 things that are necessary to understand about what we are going to talk about. One, we use homegrown technology. So we have many software that we buy, but we also build some of our own. We have the capability of doing API development internally. I've got 2 experts that work almost full time for me. They don't belong to me. They're not in my department, but I keep them so busy that they don't have a lot of time to work on other things. And then the third one to understand is that I own the platforms that I'm talking about. So I don't have a lot. I own many of the platforms that I'm talking about. So I don't have to worry about a lot of system stuff and having discussions and planning on that stuff. I get to decide what the priority is. I get to decide which application we're going to focus on next. And my business owners get to guide the priority. But I can help them understand what can be done. So that unified approach gives me a tactical advantage that I can't speak. Some folks aren't going to have that. If you can get it, I suggest you fight for it. It does solve for another couple of things that were talked about in the keynotes this morning and yesterday, where that siloed business model kind of causes some traction problems when we're trying to do all the automation stuff. So as I said, we onboard about 18, 20,000 employees. It required 4 individuals at least some point in the journey to do things. And the minimum that I got was that 23 to 27 minutes that you see up there. And it required 4 different systems. We have our training system. We had our Ivanti system because they were having to they have to go manually into training class. Then they had to manually go into Ivanti and create a ticket. And when they went to Ivanti to create a ticket, does anybody ever get those tickets that have 27 names in them in one ticket? What's the joy of that? The joy of that is it was easy for them to submit it. What's the pain of that? How do you manage that? I've got one ticket that has to live until all 27 people are done. And if one of those people can't get done, I miss SLAs, right? Or how do I track that I've got 23 of these are actually complete, but 4 of them still haven't got their equipment yet for whatever reason? So it's nearly impossible to really manage from an IT perspective. So, and then we had our third-party system that I was telling you about. They've got a completely standalone, they're outside of our environment, right? And then our finance system. So what we did was, and I'm going to read my notes here just a little bit to make sure that I don't skip anything, because I will. So we did our API integration from Ivanti to our homegrown solution. So that's why I brought up my developers, right? Because they're the winners here. They're the real heroes, because they were able to allow us to tie those two together. So what happens today, where before I had to go do all that, now when my roster is complete and I've got my 20 employees, I click a single button in our training system. That single button opens 20 separate tickets inside of Ivanti now, not one with 20 different users, 20 individual tickets that each get to be tracked. Those 20 tickets now reach out to our third-party fulfillment partner and opens 20 work orders, not one work order with 20 units on it. So I can track back individually to the individual computer, back to the individual ticket that created it, back to the class from which they originated. We currently get back the 2 pieces. One, we get back the shipping information for it. So now we can track it through the URL to the shipping piece. The second thing we get back is the shipping cost. That was an invisible element to us. We as an organization didn't have insight until you got the invoice, what we were paying per unit to ship them. So we were not taking advantage of some discounts and things that we could do through FedEx or UPS. This opened our financial team's eyes to the things that could be done there, because now I can report at an individual level and an aggregate directly into a dashboard in real time what we pay cost to ship. So operationally, we've been able to nudge our ops group to go faster, tell us sooner that these classes are starting so that we don't have to ship stuff overnight. If you're late getting it in, we're deferring that cost back to you. The other piece that kind of comes out of this is the next evolution. So continuous process improvement is a thing. And if it's not a thing for you, really needs to be. Our next evolution is going to be getting the status so that the minute it's delivered, we actually know that it's delivered. And we can get that from that third-party vendor as well through FedEx. We use a separate system for notifications. I don't know if anybody's aware of what PagerDuty is or PagerDuty-like services. So our next evolution of this is we're going to get that status. As soon as we get that status, one of the things that we have employees do when they sign on with the company is they authorize the receipt of text messaging. So we're going to text message them and say, your equipment's on your porch. Because we have 10,000 of those 23,000 employees, 10,000 work at home. So your piece of equipment sitting at your porch, have you received it yet? 1 or 2. Is it working? Yes or no? 1 or 2. If it's not working, we're going to send you to our special onboarding team, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to call you, and we're going to get your piece of equipment working. Is anything broken? It is. Monitor. Then we're going to call you. We're not going to ask you through the text messaging. We're going to contact you, and we're going to find out what's broken, and we're going to submit a separate ticket that links to the master for a monitorship or anything like that. So that's how we're doing this. What we've done is we've taken that all the way down to one action. All of the rest of that stuff that I talked about happens as part of the system. And I'm underestimating that $40,000 a year impact here. Once we get the next evolution put in place, that's going to double and probably close in on $100,000 a year. So that's just one. I think another important piece to talk about is the winners. So when you look at this, our training team no longer spends a lot of time. They don't have to understand the process. They just do their thing. They live in the training environment. And I know, Mark, this is how I'm going to bring you up again, because we talked this morning at breakfast, or yesterday, I think, about the view. There's two different views to the way this stuff works. One is maximize the view through the Ivanti user interface, right? Make it simple, unify it, get it there. The way that I do it is more like an hourglass. We keep you in the systems where you live. Our HR people live in our HR system. Our training people live in our training system. Having them move from the training system into Ivanti is time spent. It's adding clicks. It's a violation of my least number of clicks rule. If I can keep them in the training system and make all this other stuff happen, they don't even need to know that it's Ivanti that's driving it. I know. And our CFO knows where the value is, because there's dashboards that show this, and they get into our executive dashboards. How are we doing on time? All right. So I'll speed through the next use cases a little bit. So we do the same thing for credentialing, because we have to credential both internally and through all of those clients that you saw. And every one of those clients has a different way of doing their credentialing for our employees to have access to their systems. It's over 150 different ways. Current version, we create a ticket for our special login admin team, automatically triages it, routes it to the right person for the right client. The difference there is the next evolution, because again, I was talking about continuous process improvement. Next evolution is going to be, we're actually automating the dips into the client systems. We're going to start packaging, whether they want it to be as an Excel spreadsheet or whether there's a web form or whatever. We have automation engines that are currently in way. We've already done 2 clients this way. We're going to end up doing all 150 or so that there's no next step. It will be endpoint to endpoint, click a button in the training system, sets them up in their client systems. That one's a $25,000 a year because there's still a lot of manual in there. So this is one where I was talking about. We took a minute or two away. We couldn't take it all. Offboarding, backside of onboarding. So everything that I talked about that we do for onboarding, we have to do for offboarding. This one, the big difference here is risk management. We have been able to you update an HCM system that a person's been terminated. We immediately, 15 minutes is the sync time to get into Active Directory, disables their account. And since we tie everything through SSO, it shuts everything off. So if you're talking to your risk and security folks, you want to see them smile, deliver this. And so value there, 36,000, because it wasn't a lot of work on the requester side to do this. It was just tedious. They had to do it in HCM, then they had to go do it in Ivanti. This is a fun one. So again, this is driving risk management and pulling security closer to you. So I don't know if anybody does development work in your company or not. If you don't, this probably won't matter very much, so you can kind of ignore me. But if it is, test accounts are a thing. Because anytime you're doing development work, right, you have to test it, you have to have UAT, you have to do all that stuff. Threat actors love orphaned test account users, especially when they have fun things like server admin access or network access, right? Those things exist. So what we did through Ivanti is you have to submit your test user request as a ticket. There's no more Bill sending an IM to Mary saying, I need a test user on server X. That doesn't exist in our environment anymore. No emails, no nothing. It comes only through Ivanti. So you submit your ticket. It then has 2 elements to it. Well, 3 elements. The project upon which you're working, so we know to map it back to the project. The start date and end date. And you cannot have it for more than 10 days. The system will auto block it so that you can't request it for more than 10 days. And I'll touch on why that end date matters here in just a minute. Then the third element is what system, right? What's the server that it needs to go on? And if it's a server that doesn't exist, our next evolution of this, we're going to stand up virtual servers automatically as part of the ticket. So we'll actually be able to spin out through PowerShell and some other tools to actually stand up a virtual server that will exist for the same amount of time that your test user account's on there. We have 2-level authentication. So the ticket goes in, it has to get approved by an approval authority. We also control who can submit these. So there's controls. Not anybody in the company can just go ask for this. It has to be a part of the correct team or group. Then it gets approved by their specific manager. We do two things. We create the test account, and then it goes to our credentialing department to do the manual assignment of role. So it sits in Active Directory, it's created, but it doesn't go into a security group where it can start picking up access. It actually sits in a holding group with very little permissions on it, so that again, a threat actor that submits that is able to bypass this can't get through that next gate without human interaction. That's in place to support the risk management side and to get our security team on board. The critical piece to this entire thing isn't that. It's the teardown. So Ivanti watches that end date. 24 hours before the end date, sends out a notification to the person that submitted the request for the ticket, the test account. Your test account expires in 24 hours. You better complete your work. There is no extension. We don't do that. If you want another one, you have to submit another ticket and you can get 10 more days. We're very, very risk adverse where I work. The next day, at the 24-hour mark, tears it down. Automatically goes in, runs the script, deletes the account, and logs it. So from an audit standpoint, our auditors say, because we're able to provide that as an artifact, they find no issues with us, and they had no recommendations on how to improve this process. This had been a finding for us on our SOC 2. We're SOC 2, PII, PCI, HIPAA, high trust, and we're in the process of doing ISO. This has met those requirements. So if you're involved in any of those kinds of things, get with your risk management group and your SOC and see if they would benefit from it. In summary, core capabilities of Ivanti Service Manager can do most of this stuff with just some API calls back and forth. So if you're in the room and you have that, you've got most of this at your fingertips already. It's just a matter of kind of tinkering a little bit with those extra systems around the environment. Well-designed automations and integrations save time, money. I'm going to read this one. Save time, money, and improve the retention of your team by eliminating boring work. We lose people because they don't like their job. Take that stuff away. We hire experts to do expert things. Let them be experts. They didn't take the jobs to punch keys and to do paperwork. Nobody likes that, unless you do, in which case, you're probably not in the right job if you do, because that's not what a room of people like this usually enjoy, right? And then the last one is expand your horizon beyond IT. Don't just focus on the things that matter to you. Go find the things that matter to the business. It makes it so much easier to win over other battles. When we did our renewal for Ivanti back in January, I told this story already, but I went to the CFO. He had one question for me. Are you managing the volume of licenses correctly? He didn't ask about anything else. We didn't argue price. We didn't argue anything. Do we have the right number of licenses? Are we right-sized? And I said, we use named and concurrent licenses, and here's how I audit. He goes, great, that's it, approved. Because the value of the system is evident in the everyday operations of how we work.